My child, we need to speak now, not because I wish to stir fear within you, but because an urgent movement is taking shape, quietly yet unmistakably, within the rhythm of your own life. There are moments that do not permit delay, for if you hesitate even a beat, you may no longer be alert enough to recognize what is approaching. You are about to step into a season that will weigh more heavily on your shoulders. Deepen your breathing and thicken the silence around you. This is not a sign that you are weakening. It is a sign that you are nearing a threshold of transformation where what once felt familiar will no longer be sufficient to sustain you as it did before. I know you have passed through many turns, strained to remain standing against headwinds, and learned to smile even as fractures formed within. But what lies ahead will not merely test your endurance, it will test your awareness. That is why I speak not too late and not too early, but precisely when you need to hear. Do not confuse weariness with failure, or solitude with abandonment. There are silences that are deliberately arranged so you may hear more clearly what noise once drowned out. I see the mornings when you wake with a heavy feeling, the nights when you toss restlessly with unanswered questions, the moments when you wonder whether you are truly walking the right path. These questions do not weaken you. They are signs of a soul that is growing. But if you ignore this warning, if you rush toward easy escapes, you will forfeit the opportunity to be refined in the way you truly need. I do not call you to soothe you with gentle reassurances. I call you to give you truth that may cause you to tremble, yet is the very thing that will keep you standing when the ground beneath you begins to shift. Your destiny is not a straight road, nor an uninterrupted chain of ease. It is etched by small choices made in pivotal moments, when you decide to listen or turn away, when you choose steadfastness or compromise. I have seen within you a capacity for endurance that you yourself have never named. I have also seen the cracks through which fatigue can slip in and distract you. Therefore, I speak plainly. This message is not advice to be considered, but a warning that calls for action. There are challenges that can only be overcome through preparation, doors that open only when you are positioned rightly, paths that appear only when you are willing to pause and look with eyes unruled by fear. You will feel a heaviness, as though the world is demanding more while offering less. You will notice relationships that once sustained you becoming faint, old joys no longer running deep, achievements that once made you proud suddenly feeling hollow. This is not meaningless loss. It is evidence of a deeper shift. When an old shell no longer fits, the soul requires a new form. But to cross this threshold, you must learn to discern which voices guide and which merely distract. I do not want you entering this stretch with empty hands and a confused heart. I want you to step forward with awareness, knowing where you stand, why you are moving, and what must be carried with you. Remember, strength does not come from avoiding difficulty, but from standing upright before truth. There are truths that will require you to let go habits whose season has ended, beliefs that no longer serve life, expectations placed in the wrong hands. Letting go does not make you poorer. It frees the energy needed to carry what truly matters. But letting go demands courage. And courage is born when you trust that I am leading you, not pushing you into the abyss. I do not invite you into darkness so that you may be lost. I invite you to pass through darkness so you may learn to see the light in a new way. If at times you feel more alone, understand that this solitude is teaching you the difference between being with others and being with yourself. There are moments when you must quiet external voices in order to hear the inner one, not the voice of fear, but the voice of truth. I know this is not easy. Truth is rarely loud. It comes gently, patiently, and asks you to stop. Yet it is in this stopping that you will discover a new order for your mind, a new rhythm for your heart, and a new direction for your steps. Do not disregard these words, not because danger is shouting, but because it is whispering. What is coming will not ask whether you are ready, it will simply arrive. The difference lies here whether you enter with eyes open or closed, with a heart that has been trained or one surrendered to fear. I speak to you now so you have time to prepare, not to store up anxiety, but to build awareness. When you are aware, you are not swept away. You choose. When you choose in the light of truth, you are not bent out of shape, you mature. My child, before you step more deeply into the movements unfolding around your life, I want you to pause for a very brief moment, but long enough for truth to reach the very core of your soul. Not every turning point arrives with noise. Some changes begin in silence, like roots growing steadily beneath the soil before the ground ever trembles. What you are sensing right now, the unexplained heaviness, the weariness that comes even though you have not gone far, the loneliness you feel even when others are near, is not a sign of collapse. It is the sign of one season closing and another demanding to be opened. When seasons overlap, the air is always unsettled, and it is precisely within this in-between space that you need awareness more than ever. I know you have grown accustomed to carrying things on your own, to analyzing for yourself, to finding ways to stand firm as pressures continue to stack up. You have learned how to endure in silence, how to maintain a calm exterior so as not to worry anyone, how to keep moving forward even while questions remain unanswered within. But there is a truth you must face. Not all strength comes from enduring just a little more. There are moments when true strength comes from recognizing your limits and choosing to listen before continuing. I do not call you here to reproach you for being tired. I call you here to remind you that weariness is a signal, and signals are meant to be interpreted, not ignored. You are standing at a threshold where what once sustained you will no longer be enough. Old methods, the way you think, the way you react, the way you seek security have fulfilled their purpose in the previous season. If you cling to them, you will feel heavier. If you dare to release them, you will feel lighter, even though the road ahead is not yet clear. This is not an invitation to recklessness. It is an invitation to maturity. Maturity is not having more answers. Maturity is knowing which questions to ask and knowing how to wait for answers to arrive at the right time. I am leading you into a space where haste will cause you to lose your way, but awareness will open the path. There are challenges that do not come to defeat you, but to rearrange you. They strip away the outer layers you once used for protection, defensive habits, borrowed beliefs, misplaced expectations. When these layers fall away, you may feel exposed and vulnerable, yet it is precisely then that you begin to live truthfully. Living truthfully is not loud or performative. It requires quiet courage, the courage to look directly at the parts of yourself you once avoided. I am here to tell you this: you are not abandoned in this process. I do not merely see the destination. I am walking with you through every step. Do not confuse the solitude of the process with the isolation of abandonment. There are stretches of road you must walk alone in order to hear clearly the voice of conscience and truth. Too many voices will blur direction, therefore. At times, silence is a gift, not a punishment. I know you do not like that feeling. It causes you to question your worth, to doubt past choices, even to doubt what you once believed was secure. Yet it is within honestly faced doubt that faith is refined. Faith that has never been tested is merely convenient agreement. Faith that has passed through fire is what sustains you when everything else collapses. I want you to understand that what I speak today is meant for preparation, not for threat. Preparation does not make you fearful. Preparation makes you steady. When you know a demanding season is coming, you will not waste energy on small conflicts, empty comparisons, or the need to prove yourself. You will focus on what is essential, keeping your heart pure, your mind clear, your intentions aligned. These things do not come from sudden effort. They are built through small decisions, repeated daily, choosing to listen rather than react, choosing honesty rather than convenience, choosing patience rather than haste. If you feel pressure increasing, ask yourself this: what is being invited to change? Pressure does not always come from circumstances. Often it comes from the inconsistency between how you are living and who you are being called to become. When that gap widens, the soul speaks. I do not want you to ignore that voice. I want you to learn how to read it like reading a map in fog. Not every detail is clear, but direction can be discerned if you stop and look carefully. My child, I know you are afraid of making mistakes. I know you fear losing what you have built. I know you are afraid that if you let go, you will fall. But hear this: releasing what has reached the end of its season does not make you fall. It frees your hands to receive what is coming. The danger is not change. The danger is delaying change when truth has already knocked. I speak to you now because that door is open. It will not remain open forever, and it does not force itself. It waits for an aware and willing choice. My child, now that you have paused long enough to recognize the threshold on which you stand, I want you to look more deeply into the subtle movements taking place within you. There are changes that do not announce themselves through dramatic events, but through the quiet disturbance of intention. You may still be doing familiar things, still keeping the old rhythm of life, yet inwardly the order is no longer the same. New questions arise, not to unsettle you, but to open layers of understanding you have never entered before. If you try to silence them with busyness, you may find temporary calm, but if you allow them to speak, you will begin the true journey, the journey of discernment and maturity. I see in you a hidden longing, a longing for certainty. You want to know in advance what will happen, to be assured that your choices will not lead to regret. But life does not operate by such guarantees. The certainty you seek does not come from controlling outcomes, but from being faithful to what is right in each small step. When you learn to be faithful to what is right, even in uncertainty, you build a foundation that is not easily shaken. That foundation is not loud. It does not display its strength, yet when the winds rise, it keeps you standing. There are voices competing for your attention. Some of them sound reasonable, even good. They promise ease. They promise shortcuts. They promise relief from weariness. But you must learn to distinguish between what soothes and what heals. What soothes may make you feel better immediately. What heals may make you uncomfortable for a moment. Yet it restores you at the root. I do not forbid you to rest. I invite you to rest rightly, to rest in order to recover clarity, not to escape the truth. When you avoid the truth, weariness merely changes its form. When you face it, weariness becomes the energy for necessary change. You will notice that in this season, your familiar reactions no longer work. What once helped you move forward now only leads you in circles. This is not your failure. It is a sign that you have outgrown old methods. When a garment no longer fits, the wise do not force themselves into it. They look for another. I am inviting you to measure yourself again, not by others' standards, but by the rhythm of growth within you. This requires honesty, honesty about your present limits, honesty about your deepest desires, honesty about the fears you have not yet named. At times you will feel pulled in opposite directions. One voice says, "Stay where it is safe." Another says, "Move on," even though you cannot yet see the way. Both have their arguments. Yet the truth often lies in this question: which direction helps you become more upright, more free, and more capable of love? Safety is not always good. Risk is not always harmful. Discernment is not about comfort, but about truthfulness. When you choose honesty, you may have to face fear, but you also open the door to a fuller life. I want you to understand that the loneliness of this season is not meant to cut you off from community, but to purify the way you connect. Some bonds are built on the need for approval rather than on truth. Some agreements are rooted in fear rather than love. When these bonds loosen, you feel empty. Yet emptiness is not meaningless space. It is space waiting to be filled with more authentic connection. Do not rush to fill it with noise or compromise. Give that space time to take on a new shape. My child, do not underestimate the power of small decisions in this season. The decision to turn down the noise, the decision to speak truth when silence would be easier, the decision to slow down when everything urges haste. These choices are shaping you. Discipline is not rigidity. Discipline is the freedom to choose again each day. When you choose the discipline of listening, you are not driven by fleeting emotions. When you choose the discipline of faithfulness, you are not swept along by empty promises. These choices accumulate, forming a direction, and direction shapes the person you become. There will be moments when you doubt yourself. Am I overthinking everything? Am I making things harder than they need to be? Such questions are normal, but do not let them become excuses to return to old habits simply because they are familiar. Truth is not always gentle. It requires the courage to remain with what is unfinished. I am here to remind you, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what is right despite fear. When you act rightly, fear gradually loses its power. I also want you to pay attention to how you speak to yourself in this season. Inner language has formative power. If you accuse yourself, belittle yourself, or drive yourself with harshness, you only add weight to your burden. Choose a firmness shaped by compassion, a firmness oriented toward truth, not punishment. When you stumble, learn. When you are tired, rest. When you are lost, ask. I do not demand perfection. I invite honesty and perseverance. Remember that not every door that opens is meant for you, and not every door that closes is a loss. Discernment is not only about choosing, it is also about refusing at the right time. Refuse invitations that pull you away from what is essential. Refuse arrangements that make you smaller. Refuse rhythms of life that cause you to forget how to listen. When you learn to refuse, you protect your energy for what truly matters. This may cause you to be misunderstood, but temporary misunderstanding is far less dangerous than long-term betrayal of the truth. My child, now that you have learned to pause, to look more deeply, and to listen to the subtle movements within yourself, I want you to understand one essential truth. The threshold you are standing at is not merely a boundary of circumstance, but a boundary of identity. What is being shaken around you is not meant to destroy you, but to reveal what within you is real and what is only a shell formed to survive past seasons. The weariness you feel does not simply come from workload or external pressure. It arises from the tension between the person you have become and the person you are being called to become. When these two images no longer align, the soul begins to speak, and if you do not listen, that voice will turn into heaviness. There are times when you believe that if you just try a little harder, endure a little longer, everything will settle. But hear me, some doors do not open through force, but through alignment. You cannot push yourself into a new season with an old mindset without paying a cost. I am not asking you to be strong in a rigid way. I am inviting you to be strong in a flexible way, able to bend toward truth rather than break yourself to preserve what is outdated. When you dare to admit that some things once helped you survive but no longer help you live fully, you step into your first taste of freedom. In this season, you will see more clearly the inner conflicts that were once obscured. There will be desires that contradict one another, priorities that overlap, and callings that pull you in different directions. Do not rush to conclude that you are inconsistent. What you are experiencing is a process of reordering. When the old structure dissolves, temporary chaos is unavoidable. But chaos is not the destination. It is the necessary passage through which a new order is formed. I am here to assure you of this if you remain patient with the truth. That order will come not in the way you expect, but in the way you need. You will notice familiar fears attempting to reclaim control. They will remind you of past failures, unhealed wounds, and decisions you regret. They will tell you that change is dangerous, that staying the same is safer. But listen to me, safety is not the same as stagnation. Still, water becomes stagnant. Life requires movement. These fears are not enemies to be destroyed. They are signals that need to be rightly placed. When you listen to them with awareness, you will discern which are necessary warnings and which are chains that must be loosened. I want you to learn an important skill to stay with your emotions without allowing them to lead. Emotions are data, not commands. They inform you about what is happening within, but they do not have the authority to determine direction. When you let emotions take the wheel, you are pulled into short-term reactions. When you observe them in the light of truth, you can choose a fitting response. This is the difference between reactive living and conscious living. I am teaching you this because the decisions ahead will require clarity that rises above momentary fluctuations. You may find yourself feeling less understood during this time. As you change your pace, your responses, and your priorities, those accustomed to your former version may feel unsettled. Some will try to pull you back so they do not have to adjust. Others will drift away because they no longer find the same comfort. This hurts, and I do not minimize that pain. But remember, being temporarily misunderstood is far less dangerous than betraying the truth over time. Connections built on surface compatibility will waver. Connections built on truth will deepen, even if they are fewer. My child, do not measure your progress by feelings of excitement. The most important steps are often taken quietly. When you choose honesty in a difficult conversation, when you choose silence instead of self-justification, when you choose rest at the right time instead of proving yourself, you are moving forward. These steps are not applauded, but they shape who you are becoming. I see every one of those choices, and I know they are accumulating into enduring strength. I also want you to pay attention to how you use time in this season. Time is not merely a resource to be spent. It is a space in which formation takes place. If you fill every gap with noise, you will not hear what matters. If you allow intentional spaces to reflect, to write what is unfolding, to be alone without escaping you, create conditions for truth to settle. Truth does not need to shout, it needs room. You may be waiting for a clear sign, an undeniable confirmation, but most guidance arrives as gradual consistency, not as a lightning strike. You will recognize the right direction when many small things begin pointing the same way, deeper peace, even when circumstances are harder, increasing clarity, even while questions remain, an expanding capacity to love even as you set firmer boundaries. These signs are quiet, but they are trustworthy. My child, keep your heart soft toward truth and firm under pressure, soft enough to learn, firm enough not to be swept away. I do not promise that this path will be easy. I promise that it will be real. And truth, though demanding, always leads to freedom. As you continue to walk with awareness, you will find that what once frightened you no longer holds the same power. You will not be immune to difficulty, but you will no longer be defined by it. Stay with what is being revealed. Trust that the present shakings are serving a purpose greater than immediate comfort. I am working in the depths, where lasting change is formed. And as you continue to listen, continue to choose honesty, and continue to act with patience, you will realize that you are not merely passing through a season of upheaval. You are stepping into a life with a new inner order, where you stand firm not because everything is calm, but because you have learned how to live in truth. My child, as you step more deeply into this journey, I want you to recognize an important truth that many have overlooked. Not every trial comes with a visible form. There are confrontations that do not unfold before your eyes, that make no sound of collision, that leave no obvious marks, yet their impact is deeper and more enduring than any outward upheaval you have ever faced. The enemy does not always appear in a frightening or hostile guise. Sometimes he comes as a familiar thought, a seemingly reasonable emotion, a line of reasoning that sounds wise and safe. Precisely because these trials lack a clear shape, they are easily dismissed. And when you are not watchful, they quietly erode your inner strength. The most subtle trials often begin from within. They do not force you to do what is wrong right away. They merely suggest that you delay what is right. They do not lie outright. They blend a fragment of truth with layers of plausibility, leading you to convince yourself that this isn't necessary right now. This isn't that serious. Or I have a valid reason. Hear me clearly. The most dangerous thing is not crude temptation, but refined self-justification. When you begin to justify turning away from the voice of conscience, you have taken a very small but very real step out of the light. Your emotions, too, are a battlefield you must not take lightly. I did not create you as an unfeeling machine. Emotion is a natural part of being human. But when emotions are not placed under the light of truth, they can become instruments that lead you into distorted decisions. There will be days when you feel sad without knowing why, irritated without a clear cause, empty even when everything around you seems fine. In those moments, the enemy whispers that you have taken the wrong path, that your efforts are meaningless, that nothing is truly changing. If you believe those whispers without examining them, you will gradually lose the ability to distinguish between passing feelings and enduring truth. Your perception will also be tested in very quiet ways. You may be led to view everything through a narrow lens, seeing only failure and forgetting the journey, seeing only lack and forgetting grace, seeing only darkness and forgetting the light that once upheld you. This is when you must remember that how you see matters as much as what happens. A single event can become either a lesson or a lingering wound. The difference does not lie in the event itself, but in the perception you choose to hold. The enemy does not need to change your circumstances. He only needs to distort your understanding of them. I want you to be especially attentive to a form of trial that is common yet difficult to recognize: prolonged weariness. Not the fatigue that comes from honest labor, but the exhaustion born of unresolved inner tension. When you carry too many unanswered questions, too many unnamed emotions, too many fears left outside the light, you will become drained without knowing why. In that state, you are more likely to loosen your discipline, to compromise with what is not right, to say never mind to what once were your core values. I do not condemn you for being tired. I warn you not to make important decisions when your mind is worn thin. You will also be tested in how you evaluate yourself. Certain thoughts may arrive very softly. I'm not good enough. I always have to try harder than everyone else. Maybe I'm not chosen the way I thought. These thoughts are not loud, but if you allow them to linger, they will shape how you live. You will begin to act from insecurity rather than from your true identity. I tell you this, your worth is not measured by perfection, nor is it erased by your stumbles. Yet the enemy wants you to believe otherwise, because a soul that doubts its own value is easily led astray. In these formless trials, you may feel as though you are fighting alone. No one sees clearly what you are going through. No one understands why you are weighed down by things that seem small. That lack of understanding can cause you to doubt yourself. But I am here to say this plainly. Your awareness of these subtle movements is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of awakening. Those who have not awakened react only to what is obvious. Those who are maturing must learn to face what lies beneath the surface. I do not require you to win every inner battle immediately. I ask you to be honest. Honest with your emotions. Honest with the thoughts that keep returning. Honest about the places where you are vulnerable. When you bring these things into the light, they begin to lose their power. Darkness is strong only when it is hidden, when it is named. It shrinks. Do not be afraid to look directly at what is happening within you. I do not leave you in that moment. My child, these formless trials do not come to destroy you, but to refine you. They compel you to cultivate a deeper level of awareness, not merely knowing right from wrong on the surface, but discerning the motives behind your choices, not merely controlling behavior, but tending the source of your thoughts and emotions. When you learn this, you will not be easily shaken by passing winds, because you will have learned how to stand firm from within. Remember this, not every battle requires a counterattack. Some battles require only your wakefulness, so that you are not drawn in. When your heart remains anchored in truth, the enemy finds no place to fasten himself. I am leading you through these trials not so that you would doubt yourself, but so that you would know yourself more deeply, steadier, stronger, and freer. And as you continue to walk in that awareness, you will find that what once unsettled you has become only a faint echo, no longer strong enough to define you, no longer authorized to direct the course of your life. My child, after you have begun to recognize trials that have no visible form, I want you to understand why they are so subtle and why so many souls have fallen without ever realizing they were in a battle. These trials do not first target your strength or your circumstances. They target the way you interpret reality. When interpretation is distorted, action follows that distortion, and the outcomes that come afterward are simply the inevitable result. The enemy does not need to tear your life down with a single powerful blow. He only needs to lead you to misunderstand things little by little, just enough for you to drift off course without realizing it in time to turn back. Pay attention to how recurring thoughts appear in your mind. Not every thought is trustworthy. No matter how familiar it may sound, some thoughts wear the clothing of reality, of experience, of practical wisdom. Yet inside, they carry seeds of discouragement and contraction. They tell you to shrink your dreams for the sake of safety, to lower your expectations so you will not be disappointed, to keep your distance so you will not be hurt. At first, they seem reasonable, but if you follow them, you will find your heart slowly closing, the life within you gradually running dry. I did not call you to live a contracted life. I called you to live fully, even though fullness always involves risk. Your emotions in this season will also test you in a new way, no longer through violent outbursts, but through prolonged states, a quiet weariness, a vague anxiety, an indifference that is hard to name. These states can cause you to lose your inner rhythm. You begin to do everything by habit, without deep joy and without clear sorrow, only a silent exhaustion. The enemy favors this condition, because an indifferent soul will neither fight nor seek the truth. That is why I invite you to return to your emotions, with awareness neither drowning in them nor denying them. Ask what they are trying to say, and bring their message into the light. I want you to be especially alert to one subtle form of deception, comparing your inner life to the outward appearance of others. You see people who seem lighter, more successful, more certain. You do not see the quiet battles they are fighting. When you compare yourself in this way, you conclude that you are lacking, that your journey is abnormal. Such comparison does not help you grow. It drains your strength and blurs your identity. Every soul has its own process, its own rhythm, its own lessons. When you honor your own process, you stop fighting reality and begin to learn from it. Your perception of time will also be tested. You may feel that everything is moving too slowly, as if your efforts are not producing results that match your investment. In that slowness, the enemy suggests shortcuts, choices that promise quick outcomes at the cost of depth. I tell you, this lasting maturity is rarely hurried. Deep roots need time to take hold. Strong structures need time to form. If you trade depth for speed, you will pay the price when real pressure comes. You will also find yourself tested in how you set boundaries. There are relationships, obligations, and expectations that once had meaning but have now become burdens. When you begin to establish healthy boundaries, you may be judged as selfish, distant, or strangely changed. Those judgments can unsettle you, but learn to distinguish between selfishness and self-respect. Selfishness closes you off out of fear. Self-respect protects you so that you can love freely. If you do not guard your boundaries, you will be exhausted and lose your capacity to give authentically. I also want you to notice how you handle uncertainty. When answers do not come, you tend to fill the gaps with assumptions, often negative ones. You speculate about others' intentions, draw early conclusions about the future, and write unfavorable scripts in your mind. These assumptions can make you defensive, reactive, or withdrawn before it is necessary. Learn to remain with what is unclear without panicking. Not every question needs an immediate answer. Some questions only need to be held in awareness until the truth is ripe enough to reveal itself. In these layers of testing, you will learn that victory does not always feel powerful. Often, victory is quiet perseverance. It is choosing honesty when silence would be easier. It is choosing patience when irritation wants to push ahead. It is choosing rest at the right time instead of proving your worth. These choices are rarely recognized immediately, but they accumulate into inner strength. That strength is not loud, but when greater trials come, it will be the ground on which you stand firm. My child, I do not hide the truth from you. Trials without form require a higher level of maturity. They compel you to care for your inner world with the same seriousness with which you tend to outer responsibilities. When you learn to observe your thoughts, regulate your emotions, and shape your perceptions in the light of truth, you are no longer easily manipulated. You become freer not because everything becomes easier, but because you are no longer driven by what is not real. Remember that I am not standing at a distance, watching. I am closer than you think in the moments when you pause to take a deep breath. in the seconds when you choose not to react, in the times when you are honest with yourself. Each time you bring what is hidden into the light, you weaken the power of darkness. And as you continue to walk with this awareness, you will realize that these subtle trials are accomplishing something vital. They are teaching you to live from the inside out, so that nothing invisible can dictate the direction of your life. My child, when you have begun to recognize the subtle trials that operate within your thinking and emotions, I want you to understand the next step of awakening, to discern how these invisible layers of testing seek lasting power over your life. They are not satisfied with merely unsettling you for a moment. Their aim is to form inner habits, mental reflexes that occur so quickly you barely notice them. When a negative thought is repeated long enough, it becomes normal. When a heavy emotion is tolerated long enough, it becomes personality. And when a distorted interpretation is used often enough, it becomes belief. This is where the trial becomes most dangerous, because it no longer needs to push you. It runs on inertia. I want you to observe how you respond in very small moments. When there is an offhand remark, do you immediately close your heart or open it? When there is a delay without explanation, do you choose trust or assumption? When there is a minor failure, do you learn or condemn yourself? These responses reveal what is being formed within you. I am not asking you to control every thought. I am inviting you to care for the source from which they arise. When the source is truth and faithfulness, your reactions will gradually become healthy without strain. There is another subtle temptation you must be wary of, turning awareness into hypervigilance. As you begin to see the invisible layers of testing, you may grow suspicious of everything, suspicious of emotions, of motives, even of joy. If left uncorrected, this suspicion will cause you to close in on yourself and become rigid. I am not calling you to a tense life. I am calling you to clarity paired with peace. Clarity helps you discern. Peace keeps you from obsession. Hold both. When peace is lost, clarity becomes distorted. You will also notice that these layers of testing often exploit unhealed memories. They stir up old images, old words, old wounds, not to teach you, but to keep you anchored in fear. If you do not discern this, you will respond to the present with the pain of the past. I do not deny memory. I invite you to place it in its rightful position. Memory is a teacher when seen in the light. Memory is a chain when used to define the present. You do not need to forget. You need to reinterpret in truth. Another sign of invisible testing is prolonged distraction. You feel busy but ineffective, moving from one task to another without ever reaching depth. Distraction makes you think you are advancing, when in reality, you are avoiding what needs to be faced. I do not blame you for distraction. I remind you that focus is a sacred act. When you focus, you offer your full presence, and presence is where truth is able to work. Choose fewer things, but go deeper. Fewer voices, but clearer ones. Fewer commitments, but greater faithfulness. I want you to learn how to establish a pause between stimuli, not a pause to escape, but a pause to reorient. The pause allows you to recognize when a thought is leading you off course. When an emotion is demanding the steering wheel, in that pause, you can ask, does this draw me closer to truth, to love, to freedom? If the answer is no, you have the right to stop. Stopping is not defeat. Stopping is the action of one who governs direction. My child, understand that not every day will feel strong, and that does not make you weak. Invisible trials often target ordinary days, days without major events, when awareness is easily relaxed. That is why faithfulness in small things is the most enduring shield. Faithfulness to rest, to truthful speech, to healthy boundaries, to the care of your mind. These things are not impressive, but they build foundations. When the foundation is firm, subtle winds will not have the power to knock you down. I also invite you to reconsider how you define success in this season. If you measure success by constant lightness, you will be disappointed. If you measure it by faithfulness and inner growth, you will realize you are moving farther than you think. Success, in the context of invisible trials, is recognizing sooner what once pulled you off course, turning back more quickly, choosing truth more easily than yesterday. These signs are quiet, but they show that life is being protected. My child, do not forget that love is the final measure. Anything thought, emotion, or lifestyle that shrinks your capacity to love, no matter how reasonable it sounds, does not come from truth. Truth expands the heart, even while setting boundaries. Truth makes you free, even when it requires discipline. Use this measure when you are confused. It will not betray you. Finally, remember that formless trials are not a sign that you are going the wrong way. They often appear when you are going the right way and beginning to grow. As light increases, darkness becomes more subtle, not to win, but to test. I do not leave you to face this alone. Each time you choose awareness over reaction, honesty over justification, peace over suspicion, you weaken the power of what is unseen. And in time, you will realize this: what once sought to control you has become only a whisper without the strength to guide you, because you have learned to live from the depth of truth. My child, there will be moments when you walk forward and no longer sense the light that once guided your steps. It is not that the light has gone out, but that a veil has been drawn thin, yet enough to leave you disoriented. In days like these, you will wonder why your prayers seem to fall into emptiness, why the presence that once brought peace now feels distant, and why the familiar signs no longer appear. I know this weight is heavier than any storm, because it touches the deepest core of faith, whether you will still believe when you can no longer see, no longer hear, no longer feel. This silence is not abandonment. It is a testing ground, a space where faith is separated from emotion. When the light is clear, belief comes naturally. When the light is veiled, belief becomes a choice. I do not remove the light to lead you astray. I allow the veil so that you may learn to walk by something deeper than sight. For if your faith exists only when you feel supported, it will dissolve the moment your emotions shift. True faith does not deny emotion, but it does not depend on it. During this season, you may feel abandoned even among those who know you well. Words of comfort sound hollow. Answers feel foreign, and familiar rituals no longer reach your heart. You will ask whether you have done something wrong, whether something in you has caused me to turn away. Hear me clearly, this silence is not a verdict, it is a test. Not to punish, but to refine. It separates borrowed belief from chosen belief, dependence on signs from faithfulness to truth. I know you fear that if the silence continues, you will run dry. But listen to this: silence does not take away the source of life. It teaches you to seek the source in the right place. There are supports you have leaned on: approval, achievement, familiar rhythms, and when they no longer sustain you, panic sets in. Silence invites you back to a deeper well, where life does not depend on circumstances. Returning there is not easy. It requires letting go of false anchors and staying with the emptiness long enough for truth to take shape. In days when the light is veiled, You will be tempted to interpret everything in the worst possible way. A delay becomes proof of neglect. A closed door becomes the conclusion that all is over. This is when you must discern between interpretation and truth. Truth does not change with feeling. Interpretation does. When you allow feelings to lead, you will paint a dark picture. When you anchor yourself in truth already proven, you will stand firm even while the picture remains unfinished. I invite you to remember the times when the light did come, not to live in the past, but to keep your bearings in the present. You may find yourself praying with fewer words, or unsure of what to say at all. Do not fear this loss of language. There are prayers that need no words. They are prayers of faithful presence. When you remain even without feeling, when you continue to do what is right without encouragement, when you keep your heart upright without visible response, you are praying with your entire life. Such prayers are not loud, but they carry weight. I hear them more deeply than you realize. Silence will also test how you see yourself. When the light no longer affirms you, you will face the question, who am I when I am not seen? If you define yourself by the feeling of being chosen, you will waver. If you define yourself by faithfulness, you will stand. Faithfulness needs no audience. It grows in hidden places, where truth alone bears witness. I see what you do in secret the moments you choose patience, the times you do not react, the times you refuse to retaliate. None of this is lost. It is forming you in a lasting way. My child, understand that this test does not ask whether you are strong. It asks whether you are real. Real with your fear. Real with your doubt. Real with your fragility, but also real with the values you have chosen. Being real does not mean exposing everything to everyone. It means not deceiving yourself. When you admit that you do not feel, yet still choose to believe, that you do not see, yet still walk, that you do not hear, yet still keep your heart upright, you are entering the depth of faith. There will be moments when you want to force the light to return through effort, through urgent pleading, through doing more. Be careful. Light is not forced, it is received. When the time is ripe, the veil will be lifted not because you have done enough, but because you are ready. Readiness is not perfection. It is the moment when you no longer need light in order to believe, but believe so that light may shine more deeply. Keep your rhythm simple in this season. Do not add noise to fill the emptiness. Do not chase quick answers to soothe anxiety. Be faithful to what is before you. Care for what has been entrusted to you. Keep your words truthful. Act with kindness. Rest when it is time. These small acts become anchors when vision is veiled. They keep you from drifting when the undercurrents rise. My child, if at times you feel you are walking through the night, remember this: the night does not erase the path. It only slows your steps and makes them more careful. I am nearer in nights like these not to pull you forward, but to teach you how to walk. When you learn to walk in the dark, you will not fear a delayed dawn. And when the light returns, it will not only illuminate the road ahead, it will illuminate you, a person refined, not by what you felt, but by what you faithfully chose. My child, true faith is not measured by the moments when you feel strong, supported, or filled with certainty. True faith is revealed most clearly when every emotional support is stripped away, when you stand before an unanswered void, and when the silence lingers long enough to expose what you have been leaning on. Many assume that faith is a feeling of assurance, yet feelings come and go, while faith is the choice to remain with truth even when nothing seems to sustain you. It is precisely within this separation between emotion and choice that faith is refined. When the light is veiled, You will realize that you once relied on signs more than you knew. You leaned on a sense of peace to know you were on the right path, on positive outcomes to validate your effort, on quick answers to believe you were being heard. These things are not wrong, but they cannot be the final foundation. When they disappear, you feel exposed. Yet that exposure is not evidence of abandonment. It is evidence that you are being invited to build on something deeper, a place where faith does not require immediate proof in order to endure. In this season, you will face uncomfortable questions. What if the silence continues? What if I misunderstood everything? What if I keep going and nothing changes? These questions can frighten you because they offer no quick answers. But understand, this true faith does not eliminate questions. It teaches you how to carry them without letting them dictate your direction. You do not need certainty in order to be faithful. You need faithfulness so that certainty may slowly take shape in time. I want you to clearly distinguish between faith and self-reassurance. Self-reassurance seeks to quiet anxiety with pleasant words. Faith confronts anxiety with truth. There will be moments when you are tempted to tell yourself that everything is fine even when it is not, simply to escape discomfort. But avoidance does not heal. Faith allows you to acknowledge that you are afraid, doubting, weary, and still choose to walk in what is right. That is a quiet strength no comforting phrase can replace. Silence will also challenge how you understand presence. You are accustomed to experiencing presence as something tangible, warm, and supportive. When that sensation fades, you assume presence has withdrawn. Yet there are forms of presence that do not announce themselves through feeling, like a teacher who steps back so the student may walk on their own. Presence remains only without interference. This stepping back is not abandonment, it is empowerment. It grants you the space to live faith as a mature choice, not as an emotional reflex. My child, pay attention to what is happening within you as the silence endures. You may find yourself becoming more honest, less eager to display faith, less inclined to perform, more committed to living what you believe. You may notice a growing humility, less certainty in your judgments, less haste in your conclusions. These movements are quiet, but they are signs of a maturing faith. Mature faith does not need to prove itself with words. It is recognized through how you treat others, how you choose, and how you remain. In this temporary darkness, you will understand that faith does not demand clarity before taking a step. It steps so that clarity may come. If you wait for full light before moving, you will remain still. If you walk in faithfulness, light will come enough for each step. Not enough for the entire road, but enough for the next one. True faith accepts this rhythm, the rhythm of partial guidance, not total control. I know there are times when you feel you are doing everything right and still see no results. This can make you question the value of faithfulness. But remember, results do not always appear in the same season as effort. Some seeds must remain in darkness before they break the surface. True faith does not dig up the seed each day to inspect it. It trusts the process even when nothing seems to change on the outside. By remaining faithful, you are nurturing realities you cannot yet measure. My child, do not equate silence with absence. Do not equate testing with rejection. And do not equate doubt with failure. Doubt faced honestly can lead you into deeper faith. Doubt denied is what hollows you out. I am not afraid of your questions. I am only concerned when weariness causes you to stop seeking truth. Bring both doubt and faith into the same space of faithfulness. There, truth is able to work. True faith also shapes how you live when no one is watching. When you no longer feel supported, do you still choose integrity? when there is no immediate reward? Do you still choose kindness? When there is no affirmation, do you still choose honesty? These choices are the measure of mature faith. They require no audience. They are etched into the depth of the person you are becoming. Finally, remember, this true faith does not harden you. It makes you more tender toward truth and more steady under pressure. When you pass through the season where the light is veiled without losing integrity, you will no longer need light as a condition for belief. And when the light returns, for it will return, you will see more clearly, not only the path, but yourself, a person who has learned to believe, not because of feeling, not because of signs, but because truth has taken deep root within the heart. My child, true faith does not close itself within beautiful declarations or brief moments of brightness. It is forged in perseverance when you continue to walk even when nothing visible seems to uphold you. There are days when you wake with a sense of emptiness, no enthusiasm, no affirmation, no clear summons. On such days, faith is no longer an emotion to be enjoyed, but a decision to be kept. Kept not by gripping until exhaustion, but by placing the weight of your life upon what you know to be true, even while every outward sign remains temporarily silent. True faith teaches you to discern the difference between believing because you see and seeing because you believe. To believe because you see is easily shaken. To see because you believe takes time. When you believe because you see, light becomes a condition. When you see because you believe, light becomes a consequence. This distinction is not small. It determines whether you live reactively or intentionally. The reactive life waits for circumstances to change before the heart changes. The intentional life keeps the heart steady, so circumstances do not seize the right to lead. Mature faith does not demand that you understand everything. It asks that you remain faithful to what you have already understood. In prolonged silence, you will learn a difficult yet liberating lesson. Faith does not need to be felt in order to exist. There are realities perceived only when you stop demanding sensation. Like roots beneath the soil, faith works in the dark, unseen, unhurried, yet persistent. You do not watch roots grow day by day, but it is the roots that determine whether the tree stands firm against the wind. If you dig them up to inspect, you damage the process. True faith trusts enough not to interfere roughly with what is being formed. My child, faith will also challenge how you understand success and failure. When the light is veiled, you may assume you have gone the wrong way or been rejected. Yet failure is not always wandering astray. Often, it is going deeper. Going deeper means leaving shallow measures behind in exchange for depth that cannot be immediately quantified. True faith allows you to continue living uprightly without the guarantee that it will be noticed. It frees you from the need to prove yourself so that you may focus on being transformed. There will be times when your faith is misunderstood by others, and even by yourself. Others may interpret your silence as passivity, your patience as indecision. You yourself may accuse your heart for not feeling enough or not doing enough. Remember, this faith is not a matter of intensity. It is a matter of direction. You do not need to be strong by loud standards. You need to be faithful by enduring ones. Faithfulness is staying with what is right, repeating what is good, keeping your heart aligned day after day. True faith also reshapes how you pray. Prayer becomes less a list of requests meant to fill a void and more a space to place your heart within the truth. Some days you can only sigh. Let that breath become your prayer. Some days you can only sit still. Let that presence become your trust. Not every prayer needs sound. Some prayers are spoken through unbroken faithfulness. They go deeper than words because they carry a life. As you continue walking through this temporary darkness, you will notice a subtle change. Fear gradually loses its power, not because circumstances grow easier, but because you no longer need sensation to confirm truth. You learn to accept that you can be afraid and faithful, weary and persistent, doubtful and still moving forward. This simultaneity is a sign of maturity. Immature faith demands emotional purity. Mature faith embraces complexity without losing direction. True faith also purifies your motives. When the light is clear, it is easy to serve for joy. When the light is hidden, you learn to serve for truth. This shift cleanses the heart. You no longer do what is right in order to feel good. You do what is right because it is right. This is the place where faith no longer depends on reward. And when reward comes, because it will come, you receive it with gratitude, not dependence. My child, pay attention to the small fruits appearing in this season. You may find yourself more patient with others, less reactive to provocation, more honest with yourself. You may set clearer boundaries without bitterness. Say no without long explanations. These changes are quiet, yet they testify that faith is working at a deep level. Fruit comes later, roots come first. Honor that order. Do not fear if you do not yet feel that you believe enough. Faith is not a scale for comparison. It is a path to be walked. Each faithful step is enough for that day. When you gather these sufficient steps together, you will see a life being shaped not by rare, radiant moments, but by quiet endurance. True faith does not promise you a path without darkness. It promises you the capacity to walk without being defined by the darkness. And this is what I want you to hold firmly. True faith does not remove you from reality. It places you within reality with a steadier heart. You do not flee questions. You carry them with you. You do not deny pain. You allow it to be transformed. You do not demand the light to return on your terms. You trust so the light may come at the right time. Living this way, you will realize that even while the light was veiled, you were never standing still. You were being led slowly, deeply, and securely into a faith that does not need to be felt to be real, because it has taken root in the very way you live. My child, when you step into a realm of shadow where light no longer illuminates every corner, what matters most is not finding more voices, but learning how to discern. In darkness, sound is not scarce. What is scarce is the wisdom to recognize which voices lead and which mislead. Some voices sound familiar, close, even reasonable. Some arise from fear, some from memory, some from desires that have not yet been healed. And there is a voice that comes from truth, often softer, slower, less persuasive at first, yet steady and consistent. The art of discernment is not an inborn talent. It is a discipline formed through honest listening and persistent choice. First, you must understand that not every inner voice carries the same authority. There are voices that pressure, voices that entice, voices that defend, and voices that guide. The pressuring voice is usually hurried, demanding immediate decisions and denying you time to reflect. The enticing voice promises quick benefit, instant relief, and escape from discomfort. The defensive voice exaggerates danger, rehearsing old wounds to keep you within familiar territory. The guiding voice is different. It does not rush, does not coerce, does not promise instant gratification. It invites you to walk in truth, even when that truth requires patience and courage. My child, pay attention to the rhythm of the voice you are listening to. A true voice carries a rhythm of peace, even when its message is challenging. It does not drive you into panic, it awakens you. A false voice stirs agitation, it quickens your heartbeat, entangles your thoughts, and urges reaction rather than response. When you feel pushed into a corner and forced to choose immediately, pause. Truth does not fear time, deception does. Time is an ally of discernment. A common trap in darkness is confusing the voice of the ego with the voice of truth. The ego speaks persuasively. It uses the language of reason to protect fear, the language of morality to conceal pride, and the language of wisdom to delay obedience. The ego is not always wrong, but when it holds absolute power, it places self-preservation above truth. Ask yourself, does this voice expand your heart, or merely protect an image you are trying to maintain? Does it lead you toward humility, or reinforce self-justification? The true voice neither flatters you nor diminishes you. It calls you into your rightful place, no higher, no lower. It reminds you of your worth without feeding arrogance. It warns you of danger without sowing despair. When you hear the true voice, you may feel discomfort, but not condemnation. There is a profound difference between correction and condemnation. Correction opens a path, condemnation seals hope shut. Discern this carefully, for darkness is skilled at disguising condemnation as reality. My child, do not evaluate a voice by its content alone. Observe the fruit it produces over time. A voice that leads you into truth will, with time, make you more patient, more honest, and freer in love. A false voice may give you a sense of control at first, but gradually it makes you contract, doubt, and withdraw. Fruit does not appear in a single day, therefore discernment requires long-term observation. Look back at the decisions you made while following a certain voice. Where did they lead you? In darkness. You will also hear many voices from outside opinions, advice, judgments. Not all are harmful, but not all are meant for you. Discernment does not mean rejecting every suggestion. It means choosing wisely. Ask yourself, does this voice understand the whole landscape of your life? Or only react to a fragment? Does it encourage you to live more truthfully, or merely to fit in better? Conformity is easy, authenticity is hard. Yet only authenticity leads to freedom. I want you to learn to create space before deciding. Silence is not delay born of fear. It is a place where truth can surface. In that stillness, observe what within you becomes clearer and what settles down. The true voice often grows clearer as the noise diminishes. False voices need noise to survive. If you constantly require stimulation, validation, and argument to sustain a decision, question that decision. Truth does not need promotion. It stands on its own. My child, discernment in darkness also requires the humility to accept that you may be wrong. Not every mistake is a disaster. Many are necessary lessons. When fear of being wrong keeps you from choosing, you hand authority to fear. When you accept the possibility of error yet remain faithful to what you understand to be right, you hand authority to truth. I do not ask you to never be wrong. I invite you to remain teachable. Those who are willing to learn are led farther than those who insist on proving themselves right. Remember that the true voice is consistent with values already tested in your life: honesty, love, patience, respect. It does not contradict itself over time. False voices shift with advantage, emotion, and pressure. When a voice requires you to bend your values in order to justify it, stop. Truth does not bend to fit. It invites you to realign yourself to live rightly. Finally, my child, Know that the art of discernment does not make you someone who never hesitates. It makes you someone who is not ruled by hesitation. You will still experience uncertainty, but you will know how to remain within it without panic. You will know how to hear many voices without being pulled in every direction. And gradually, through repeated faithfulness, your ear will grow accustomed to the rhythm of the true voice, gentle, deep, unwavering enough for you to recognize it even when the darkness is thick. When you live this way, you do not need blinding light to walk rightly. You carry within you the capacity to discern, and that capacity will keep you on the path of truth. My child, there comes a point on this journey when you can no longer move forward by the stories you tell yourself. The narratives you once used to explain, to justify, to soothe your fear have fulfilled their purpose. And now they have become obstacles. The truth stands before you without noise or coercion, yet with firmness. It does not come to wound you, but to end the cycles that keep you stuck. I speak to you now because you are strong enough to endure what is uncomfortable, and mature enough to no longer need self-deception in order to survive. Facing yourself is the hardest step because it allows no room for blame. When you look directly, you will see the parts you once avoided, mixed motives, disguised desires for recognition, fears dressed up as prudence, defensive habits mistakenly called wisdom. Not all of these are bad. Many once helped you endure harsh seasons. But what saved you in the past can bind you in the present. The truth does not condemn what has been. It asks a question. Does this still serve your life today? You will realize that self-deception rarely appears as blatant falsehood. It often comes disguised as reasonableness. I do this because of circumstances. I just need more time. I have no other choice. These statements may be partly true, but when repeated long enough, they become blindfolds. I am not inviting you to deny circumstances. I am inviting you to discern between circumstance and choice. Circumstances influence, but they do not decide everything. When you hand full authority to circumstance, you hand over your freedom as well. Unmasking illusion does not require you to become harsh with yourself. On the contrary, it calls for honest compassion. True compassion does not say that everything is fine. It says that you can face what is not fine without being destroyed. There are illusions you keep not because they are true, but because they spare you pain. You believe you do not need to change because change reawakens memories of failure. You believe you already understand enough because admitting you do not would make you feel vulnerable. Illusion protects you from short-term pain while extending long-term pain. The truth does the opposite. It may hurt at first, but it liberates. My child, the truth will also require you to examine the story you tell about yourself. You may have framed yourself as the one who is always wronged, or the one who must always carry the load, or the one who must always prove something. These roles give you certain feelings, rightness, safety, familiarity, but they also limit you. When you cling to a role, you stop seeing other possibilities. The truth invites you to step out of the role and return to your real self, a person both strong and fragile, both learning and growing. Dismantling self-deception also asks you to face the hidden benefits of not changing. There are unspoken gains, avoiding new responsibility, avoiding new risk, avoiding the need to set boundaries, avoiding difficult conversations. When you recognize these benefits, do not condemn yourself. Be honest. Honesty opens the way to new choices. When you know what you are holding and why, you can decide to release or retain it freely, not reflexively. You will see that the truth does not demand that you discard everything at once. It asks you to untie knots one by one, small knots of half-truths, knots of postponing the right decision, knots of silence when it is time to speak. Each knot loosened releases energy. You do not need to make noise. You need consistency. Sustainable change rarely comes from sudden resolve. It comes from repeated faithfulness to what is true. You may fear that if the truth is spoken, you will lose something, a relationship, an image, an opportunity. I do not deny that possibility. But listen carefully. What you lose by living in illusion is greater. You lose deep peace, quiet self-respect, the capacity to choose without constraint. The truth does not promise that you will keep everything. It promises that you will keep yourself. And keeping yourself is the foundation for rebuilding whatever is needed. The truth will also challenge how you deal with mistakes. There are two ways to avoid truth: self-justification and self-condemnation. Both are masks. Self-justification denies responsibility. Self-condemnation denies grace. The truth takes a third path: acknowledge and learn. When you acknowledge without drowning in guilt, you make room for healing. When you learn without diminishing yourself, you turn mistakes into wisdom. That is freedom. My child, do not expect the truth to always arrive as a clear declaration. Often it comes as a sense that something no longer fits, as a small but persistent nudge, as a question that will not be silent. Honor these signals. They do not come to disturb you. They come to lead you home to who you are becoming. If you ignore them, they will grow louder. If you listen, they will guide you more gently. There are moments when the truth will make you feel disoriented, as if familiar ground has been pulled away. That is a moment of transition. Do not rush to fill the space with cheap answers. Stay with the emptiness long enough for the truth to shape a new order. This order is not built on the illusion of control, but on integrity. It does not promise absolute safety. It offers enduring freedom. My child, the truth is uncomfortable because it asks you to release what you once used to protect yourself. But precisely for that reason, it liberates. When you no longer have to remember what you said to cover things up, when you no longer have to maintain an image to gain approval, when you no longer have to avoid in order to keep the peace, you breathe more lightly. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is no longer being ruled by what is untrue. Enter the truth with gentle courage, courage to look, gentleness to refrain from self-attack. I am here not to expose you, but to unbind the chains. As you continue choosing truth in small things, you will see doors open, not because you have become more deserving, but because you are ready to live without illusion. And that is where freedom begins quietly, without display, yet deep and enduring, beyond what can easily be taken away. My child, when you have dared to look directly at the first truth without turning away, a deeper layer opens, one where subtler illusions begin to dissolve. At this level, you realize that self-deception is not only the stories you tell yourself, but also the feelings you cultivate, the habits you protect, and the boundaries you avoid. The truth here is no longer merely about recognition. It is about restructuring. It reaches into how you live each day, how you choose when no one is watching, and how you speak to yourself when no excuse remains convincing enough. You will encounter a paradox. There are things you know are no longer true, yet you still hold on to them, not because you believe in them, but because you fear what might come if you let go. You fear emptiness, fear having to relearn, fear disappointing others, fear taking responsibility for new choices. These fears are not wrong. They are signals that you are standing at the threshold of genuine growth. But if you allow fear to take the lead, you will rename it caution and remain where you are. Truth invites you to discern caution protects life. Fear freezes it. At this level, truth also asks you to re-examine the boundaries you have set with yourself. Some boundaries you once built for protection have now become walls. You say, "I can't," when in truth, it is, "I don't want to face this." You say, "I need more time," when in truth, it is, "I'm afraid of change." I do not accuse you of this. I invite you to name it accurately. When you name it rightly, boundaries become flexible, and walls turn back into doors. That door does not force you to walk through immediately. It gives you the dignity of real choice. My child, truth will also expose the hidden benefits of staying where you are. There is the benefit of familiarity, knowing where it will hurt and how it will hurt. There is the benefit of the victim role, receiving sympathy without needing to change. There is the benefit of the burden bearer being praised for sacrifice, even while exhausted. When you see these benefits, do not feel ashamed. Be honest. Honesty does not make you selfish. It makes you free to choose differently. No longer driven by invisible rewards. Truth will also challenge how you use language with yourself. Words do not merely describe reality, they shape it. When you repeatedly speak in ways that diminish you, you are building a cage. When you repeatedly speak in ways that glorify you beyond truth, you are building an illusion. Truth teaches you to speak precisely without exaggeration, without self-erasure. "This is hard" is not the same as "I can't." "I am learning" is not the same as "I am inadequate." Small adjustments in language release immense energy within the soul. You may be surprised to discover that truth does not only require you to say yes to what is right, but also to say no to what is wrong, even when that wrong feels safe. Saying no becomes a sacred act when it protects life. Yet saying no demands that you endure temporary discomfort, the dissatisfaction of others. Short-term imbalance. The silence that follows a decision. If you avoid that discomfort, you will pay with prolonged stagnation. Truth places the choice before you: short-term discomfort for long-term freedom. My child, as you dismantle self-deception, you will notice suppressed emotions rising to the surface: grief not yet cried, anger not yet named, regret not yet acknowledged. Do not panic. Emotions surfacing are not signs of regression. They are signs that pressure is being released from the system. Allow them to be present without allowing them to take control. Emotions that are heard will soften. Emotions that are denied will seek another way to erupt. Truth will also invite you to reconsider how you handle responsibility. There are responsibilities you have carried out of fear of judgment, and responsibilities you have avoided out of fear of failure. Both distort your path. Healthy responsibility neither carries what belongs to others nor neglects what is yours. It knows what to take on and what to return. When responsibilities are restored to their proper place, you feel lighter, not because you do less, but because you are doing what is truly yours. My child, do not expect truth to make everything clear all at once. There are seasons when you know only that you cannot continue as before, yet you do not know exactly what comes next. That is a creative void. It is frightening because it offers no ready-made answers. But it is also the space where new choices can take shape. Do not rush to fill the void with hasty decisions just to escape uncertainty. Remain there long enough for truth to reorder priorities from within. Truth will also test how you understand loyalty. Loyalty is not clinging to commitments that are no longer true. Loyalty is remaining faithful to the values you have chosen, even when their form must change. Some commitments must be ended with integrity so that life can continue. Ending is not always betrayal. Sometimes it is the deepest expression of faithfulness to what is right. My child, as you continue to walk in truth, you will notice a subtle yet profound shift. You will need to defend yourself less. When there are no illusions left to protect, you no longer waste energy on justification. You can receive feedback without collapsing, admit fault without self-destruction, and correct course without shame. This is the sign of freedom beginning to bloom, freedom from having to appear right in order to live rightly. Be patient with this process. Dismantling self-deception is the work of many days, not a single moment. Each time you choose truth over convenience, another knot loosens, and as those knots gradually come undone, you will find yourself walking more lightly, not because life has fewer trials, but because you are no longer carrying unnecessary burdens. Truth is not always comfortable, but it is faithful to you. It does not abandon you among the ruins. It leads you outward, to a place where freedom is not an illusion, but the natural breathing rhythm of a life lived with integrity. My child, when you have gone deep enough that truth is no longer a concept but an experience, you will notice something subtle. Freedom does not come from knowing more, but from no longer hiding. Hiding is not only about lying to others. Hiding is postponing honesty with yourself. There are days when you say, "I'm fine," while something inside is cracking. Say later, while your conscience is already knocking. Say it's okay while your heart is asking to be cared for. Truth does not enter to accuse you, but to remove the armor you have worn for too long, the armor that once helped you survive, but now only exhausts you. When self-deception is dismantled, you begin to see more clearly the cost of continuing as before. Not a loud cost, but a quiet one, the dulling of emotion, the shrinking of dreams, the erosion of joy that once came without conditions. You will realize that what drains you is not responsibility, but inconsistency, living one way, thinking another, speaking yet another. Truth restores unity. When you are unified, energy returns. When energy returns, you have the strength to choose differently. My child, truth will also touch the way you face shame. Shame is not recognizing that you have done wrong. Shame is believing that you are wrong. Self-deception often uses shame as a curtain. Either you cover it with self-justification, or you crush yourself with self-punishment. Both keep you stuck. Truth does something else. It separates behavior from identity. You can be wrong without becoming worthless. When you learn to say, "I was wrong," instead of, "I am bad," shame loses its power, and learning begins. At this deeper level, you will recognize a very common illusion, the belief that change must happen all at once, immediately, or not at all. That illusion pushes you either into extreme resolutions or into giving up because you feel you do not have the strength. Truth invites you onto a different path, the path of small steps held consistently. A timely apology, a boundary spoken in a calm voice, a small habit maintained. These things are not impressive, but they restructure a life. Sustainable freedom does not come from a great leap. It comes from a steady rhythm of steps. My child, when you stop deceiving yourself, you will also have to face the truth that not everyone is ready to walk with you. Some relationships are built on silence, en rôles, en compromis. When you live more honestly, those relationships will be shaken. This is painful, and I do not deny that pain. But remember, truth does not take away what is good. It only exposes what is not durable. Connections that can withstand truth will deepen. Connections that cannot withstand truth were already fragile. Truth will also require you to look again at how you use your time and attention. Self-deception often consumes time through loops, overthinking, comparing, postponing. When you live truthfully, you begin to choose which tasks deserve your energy, which conversations need to happen, what can wait. This selectiveness does not make you cold. It makes you more fully present where it matters. Presence is the natural fruit of truth. My child, you may fear that if you speak the truth, everything will collapse. But what usually happens is different. What needs to fall will fall, and what needs to be built will have a firmer foundation. Truth does not destroy for the sake of destruction. It clears space for life. Clearing space is not an act of violence. It is an act of care. When you clear space in your mind and heart, you make room for what is new, not new in the sense of strange, but new in the sense of more fitting. Dismantling self-deception also asks you to learn how to tolerate discomfort without reacting too quickly. When truth touches you, you may feel restless, anxious, eager to explain immediately, eager to act at once. Give yourself a pause. A pause does not weaken truth. It gives truth a chance to sink in. In that pause, ask which action comes from fear and which comes from honesty. The answer is not always clear right away, but it will become clear if you are patient. My child, as you continue to live in truth, you will realize that freedom is not the absence of constraints, but the choice of the right ones. You bind yourself to the values you have chosen, to the words you have spoken, to the work that must be done. These commitments do not imprison you. They keep you from drifting. When you know what you belong to, you are not pulled by every invitation. Truth gives you a center. Truth will also reshape the way you love. Love is no longer about pleasing at all costs, or sacrificing yourself to exhaustion, or staying silent to preserve harmony. Love becomes action with boundaries, with presence, with responsibility. You speak truth out of respect, not to attack. You listen out of care, not out of fear of loss. You stay because you choose to, not because you are trapped. This is mature love, love that does not need illusion to survive. My child, remember, this truth does not make you perfect. It makes you upright. Uprightness does not mean never being wrong. It means returning more quickly when you are. Uprightness does not mean never feeling pain. It means not prolonging pain through concealment. Uprightness does not mean never being afraid. It means not letting fear write the script of your life. When you live uprightly, you walk more lightly, not because burdens disappear, but because you no longer carry burdens that do not belong to you. And here is what I want you to hold deeply. Truth does not need you to defend it. It stands on its own. What needs guarding is your courage to remain with truth, day after day. Each time you choose to speak truthfully, act truthfully, live truthfully, however small, you open another space of freedom. These spaces join together into a wider life, one in which you no longer have to perform, no longer have to blind yourself, no longer have to deceive yourself just to keep going. This is not a life without difficulty. It is a life that is no longer bound. And as you walk in that life, you will discover that truth, though not always comfortable, has done what it promised. It has set you free, one knot at a time, one day at a time, steadily and truly. My child, before the storm truly arrives, what determines whether you stand firm or collapse does not lie in the storm's intensity, but in the depth of your quiet preparation. Many wait for a miracle to resolve chaos, hoping for a sudden intervention to erase difficulty. But I tell you a truth that is not easy to hear. Miracles rarely replace discipline. What protects you when the winds rise is not a moment of inspiration, but faithful habits forged long ago in silence. The storm does not create who you are. It only reveals who you have become in the days when no one was watching. Spiritual discipline is not a rigid set of rituals or a checklist to earn approval. It is the inner structure that sustains life, the rhythms that keep you oriented when emotions sway. When you keep these rhythms, you are no longer dependent on inspiration. Inspiration comes and goes. Discipline remains. Discipline enables you to do what is right, even when motivation is absent. And that is what forms enduring strength. I am not asking you to do more. I am inviting you to be more consistent. Before the storm, watchfulness is the most precious gift. Watchfulness is not anxiety or hypervigilance. It is the capacity to recognize what is happening within and around you without being carried away. When you are watchful, you notice early signs of fatigue, misaligned thoughts, and small compromises. Early recognition gives you the chance to adjust gently, rather than being forced to repair things in panic. Watchfulness is nurtured through intentional stillness, moments when you pause to listen to your breath, examine your motives, and ask the right questions. My child, spiritual discipline also teaches you how to allocate your energy. Not everything deserves your attention. Before the storm, the enemy often tempts you to exhaust yourself with pointless arguments, draining comparisons, or empty busyness. When your energy is scattered, you enter the storm weary in body and soul. Discipline helps you choose what is necessary and what can be released. This discernment is not selfish, it is responsibility. Responsibility toward the life entrusted to you. Preparation also means laying foundations with unchanging values. When everything shakes, you will not have time to redefine what is right. That is why, before the storm, you must clarify where you stand. What does integrity mean in your life? How does love take shape when pressure increases? What does faithfulness look like when no one is praising you? These questions do not require perfect answers. They require honest ones. When your values are clear, decisions in the storm become simpler, not easier, but clearer. My child, spiritual discipline includes caring for the body as well. Do not separate the body from spiritual life. An exhausted body clouds discernment. A properly rested body supports watchfulness. Adequate sleep, balanced nourishment, regular movement, these seemingly ordinary practices are the foundation of inner steadiness. Do not underestimate them. The storm does not strike only the spirit, it tests physical endurance too. Preparation is holistic care. Before the storm, faithfulness in small things is an exercise that cannot be skipped. Faithful to your word, to the tasks you have accepted, to the rhythms you have chosen. You do not need grand commitments. You need commitments that are kept. When you keep small promises, you strengthen the muscles of the inner life. Those muscles will engage when great pressure comes. One who is accustomed to keeping small promises will not easily abandon larger ones. One who does what is right when it is easy will know how to do what is right when it is hard. My child, do not wait until the storm rises to learn how to pray, to meditate, or to seek guidance. These practices must be familiar in times of peace to become reflexes in chaos. When the storm arrives, there will be no space to learn from the beginning. But if you are already practiced, these disciplines will lift you naturally, not as a miracle, but as the body and soul remembering how to stand firm. Spiritual discipline also includes learning to say no before you are forced to say yes under pressure. Say no to invitations that pull you away from your values, to rhythms that drain you, to compromises that diminish you. Each timely no protects space for a more important yes. Storms often exploit fatigue to push you into compromise. Discipline helps you hold boundaries even when you are tired. My child, remember that preparation does not spare you from all pain. Preparation enables you to endure pain without losing yourself. Watchfulness does not erase fear, it prevents fear from leading you. Faithfulness does not guarantee favorable outcomes, it guarantees that you do not betray what is right. These three: preparation, watchfulness, faithfulness, are not glamorous, but they are reliable. They do not promise a stormless path, they promise that you will not lose your way in the storm. Before the storm, these practices may seem dull, repetitive, or not immediately effective. But the effectiveness of discipline is not measured by instant feeling. It is measured by the ability to remain steady over time. When the storm rises, you will not ask, "Do I feel ready?" You will act according to what you have trained. That is why ordinary days decide extraordinary ones. My child, I invite you to enter spiritual discipline with gentleness and resolve. Gentleness, so it does not become a burden. Resolve, so it is not abandoned. Begin with simple things and keep them steady. Do not wait for inspiration. Choose faithfulness. Do not seek a miracle. Build a foundation. When you do this, you do not need to know how strong the storm will be. You only need to know that you were standing firm before the winds rose, and that steadiness will carry you through fierce days without losing what is most essential. My child, now that you have begun to lay a foundation through discipline and watchfulness, I want you to understand more clearly why these quiet practices carry such strength. Spiritual discipline does not merely help you endure the storm, it restructures the way you are present in life. Before the storm, many people live by reflex, chasing urgency, yielding to emotion, bending under pressure. When the storm arrives, those reflexes become vulnerabilities. Discipline transforms reflex into choice, choice into habit, and habit into character. Character does not appear in a moment, it is accumulated. Understand that watchfulness is not a state of constant tension. Watchfulness is a gentle yet steady attention, knowing where you are, what you are doing, and why. When you are watchful, you do not lose yourself in a chain of stimuli. You notice when your rhythm begins to drift, when your motives become mixed, when fatigue is trying to tell you something important. Watchfulness does not demand that you fix everything at once. It asks that you not pretend everything is fine when it is not. This honesty is the foundation of all lasting adjustment. My child, spiritual discipline is also the art of rhythm. All life has rhythm, rhythms of work and rest, of speaking and listening, of advancing and waiting. Before the storm, if you break the rhythm of rest, you will enter the storm exhausted in body and spirit. Rest is not a luxury, it is a command that protects life. Yet resting well is different from escaping. Rest done rightly returns you to presence. Escape pulls you away from truth. Choose rest that restores watchfulness, not rest that abandons responsibility. Faithfulness in discipline does not mean rigidity. Rigidity clings to form even when the form no longer serves life. Faithfulness preserves the spirit even when the form needs to be adjusted. There are seasons when you need a slower rhythm, and seasons when you need a steadier one. Mature discipline knows how to adapt without letting go. It does not measure faithfulness by quantity, but by consistency and sincerity. My child, pay special attention to how you begin and end your day. Beginning the day in haste places you in a defensive posture. Ending the day in distraction blurs the lessons of the day. Before the storm, practice intentional beginnings, a brief stillness, a guiding question, a clear intention, and practice honest endings. Review what unfolded. Name what you learned. Release what does not need to be carried into tomorrow. These small frames keep the day from slipping out of your hands. Spiritual discipline also includes caring for your language. Language shapes the inner world. Before the storm, practice speaking more slowly, more precisely, with less judgment. When you use inflated language, you feed anxiety. When you use vague language, you feed delay. Honest language does not make everything lighter at once, but it makes everything clearer. Clarity is the condition for standing firm when the winds are strong. My child, do not underestimate the power of keeping small commitments to yourself. Those commitments, going to bed a little earlier, pausing before reacting, completing what you promised, are where you learn to trust yourself. When you do not trust yourself, you will seek external supports. When the storm comes, those supports easily shake. Discipline builds healthy self-trust, not arrogance, not self-sufficiency, simply the quiet assurance that you will not abandon yourself in difficulty. Before the storm, learn to distinguish between the urgent and the important. The enemy of discipline often wears the mask of urgency. Everything must be done now. When everything is urgent, what is important is neglected. What is important is often quiet presence. Honesty, care, discipline helps you give time to what is important first, so that when urgency arrives, you are not forced to trade away what is essential. My child, watchfulness also requires you to face fatigue without shame. Fatigue does not make you weak. Denying fatigue makes you brittle. When you recognize that you are tired, adjust the rhythm, reduce the load. Ask for help. Rearrange. Mature discipline allows adjustment without quitting. It does not say push at all costs. It says keep the right pace so you can go far. Faithfulness before the storm also means faithfulness to the truth about limits. You were not created to carry everything. When you try to carry more than your share, you may call it responsibility, but it is often a lack of boundaries. Discipline teaches you to say, "This is my part, and this is not my part." When each person carries their proper share, the community is stronger. When one person carries too much, the whole system weakens. Preparing before the storm is arranging the load correctly. My child, remember that spiritual discipline does not pull you away from life. It anchors you more deeply in life with clarity. It does not make you numb. It keeps you from being swept away. It does not make you immune to pain. It keeps pain from leading you. When the storm comes, you will still feel the wind, hear the thunder, and see the waves, but you will not lose direction, because direction has been forged in ordinary days. Do not wait for perfection to begin. Discipline is born from imperfect beginnings, sustained by faithfulness. If you slip, stand up and return to the rhythm. Returning to the rhythm quickly is a great success. No one keeps perfect rhythm. The wise keep it long enough for rhythm to become instinct. My child, as you continue to live in preparation, watchfulness, and faithfulness, you will discover a consoling truth. The storm is no longer a terrifying mystery. It becomes a circumstance to be passed through. You do not need to know every detail of the storm. You need to know what ground you are standing on. And that ground, built by gentle yet steadfast discipline, will keep you standing when the winds are strongest. not because a miracle suddenly appears, but because you prepared not to lose yourself when everything begins to shake. My child, when discipline has become a familiar rhythm of breathing and vigilance is no longer a forced effort, you will enter a deeper layer of preparation to no longer be surprised by yourself. Many believe that storms change them. In truth, storms only reveal what was already there. True preparation, therefore, is not learning how to react when everything collapses, but training so that your habitual responses have already been refined long before. When what is right has become reflex, you no longer need to argue with your conscience in moments of pressure. You act according to what you chose long ago. My child, faithfulness in this season takes a very humble form, repeating what is right, even when no results are visible. There will be days when you keep the rhythm and nothing seems to happen, no new inspiration, no clear progress. It is precisely those days that determine how you will stand when the storm rises. Faithfulness does not need an audience. It does not demand immediate reward. It builds endurance, something you cannot borrow when you suddenly need it. When you are faithful in the ordinary, you accumulate capacity for the extraordinary. Spiritual discipline also teaches you how to face small failures without losing the larger rhythm. There will be moments when you speak carelessly, fall out of step, or forget to keep a boundary. The danger is not stumbling. The danger is letting a stumble turn into abandonment. Mature preparation includes the skill of returning to the rhythm, returning to the truth, returning to what you chose. Returning faster than yesterday is real progress. Those who know how to return are not afraid of storms, because they do not confuse mistakes with collapse. My child, pay attention to how you respond to increasing pressure. Pressure often pulls you toward two extremes: excessive control or complete surrender. Discipline keeps you on the middle path, the path of peaceful responsibility. Peaceful responsibility does not make you rigid. It makes you flexibly aligned. You adjust plans without betraying values. You change pace without abandoning purpose. You say not yet without saying never. This flexibility does not come from impulse. It comes from a solid foundation. Before the storm, you must also prepare for difficult conversations. Discipline is not only about what you do alone, it is revealed in how you speak and how you listen. Practice speaking the truth early, gently, and clearly early, so it does not accumulate, gently, so it does not wound, clearly, so it does not become ambiguous. When the storm comes, hurried words easily cause unnecessary damage. Those who are accustomed to speaking truth early do not need to speak it harshly. Those who are accustomed to listening do not need excessive defenses. Preparation is practicing these things while the sky is still calm. My child, learn to keep your heart soft and your spine strong. A soft heart for compassion. A strong spine so you are not bent out of shape. Storms often test both at the same time. If you are soft without strength, you will dissolve. If you are strong without softness, you will break. Spiritual discipline trains you to hold both soft toward people, firm toward truth. When you maintain this balance, you do not need to win every argument. You need to preserve life. Preparation also means learning to accept the limits of your vision. Before the storm, you may want to know every possible scenario in order to feel secure. But security does not come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing that you will do what is right when the time comes. Discipline teaches you to trust the process, do your part today, and allow tomorrow to unfold. When you live this way, uncertainty is no longer an enemy. It becomes the space where guidance unfolds step by step. My child, be aware of a subtle temptation using discipline as a measure of worth. When you turn discipline into a standard for pride or self-condemnation, you drain it of its soul. Discipline is not meant to make you superior to others. It is meant to keep you faithful to what you chose. If you miss a step, do not punish yourself. Return to the rhythm. If you keep the rhythm, do not exalt yourself. Continue. Humility keeps discipline alive. Pride makes it rigid and lifeless. Before the storm, you must also learn to protect simple joy. Joy is not a luxury in preparation. It is fuel. Small joys, a slow meal, a quiet walk, a moment of gratitude keep you from depletion. The enemy of discipline loves to turn life into a series of soulless tasks. Mature discipline preserves joy, so you remember why you are walking this path. Those who carry healthy joy are less likely to compromise for cheap pleasure when pressure increases. My child, faithfulness before the storm also means faithfulness to the right community. No one stands strong alone for long. Preparation does not mean isolating yourself. It means choosing the right people to stay close to. Supportive relationships where truth is spoken and heard are part of discipline. Nurture them while the weather is calm, so that when the winds rise, you are not searching in panic. The right community does not weaken you. It makes you more resilient. Remember that storms do not announce themselves with loud thunder. They often arrive with a shift in the wind. Preparation enables you to notice that change early and adjust your sails. Adjustment is not fear, it is wisdom. When you are accustomed to making small adjustments each day, you will not need drastic corrections in crisis. Life is preserved by small, timely corrections. My child, when you live in preparation, vigilance, and faithfulness like this, you will enter the storm with a strange calm, not because you feel no fear, but because fear no longer commands you. You know what you will do when things are hard. Return to the rhythm. Speak the truth. Keep boundaries. Rest at the right time, and continue what you have chosen. These things do not make the storm disappear, but they keep you from falling apart. And this is what I want you to carry with you. Spiritual discipline is not a rigid suit of armor. It is a resilient backbone. It allows you to bend without breaking, to move forward without panic, to wait without abandoning the path. When the storm passes, you will not only survive, you will stand there, realizing that the quiet days of preparation did their work. No dramatic miracle, only a person who learned to live faithfully, vigilantly, and ready. And that, in itself, is the most enduring miracle of all. My child, there will come a time when you realize that not every trial arrives to be overcome immediately, and not every door opens for you to walk through. There are moments when I place you in a season of waiting, not because of any lack of power, but because you need to be formed before you move forward. Most people fear waiting, because waiting exposes what they cling to control, the need for certainty, the hunger for validation. Yet it is precisely in that space that seems empty and suspended that the deepest work takes shape. Patience is not passive delay. It is an intentional inner act, remaining faithful to what is right, even when there is no visible outcome. In this season, you will feel the pace of life slow down in an unsettling way. Progress that once felt tangible now becomes blurred. Signals that once guided you fall silent. It is easy to think you are falling behind, that others are moving ahead, that time is being wasted. But listen carefully, not every delay is a setback. Some processes can only unfold at a slower rhythm, because they touch depths that speed can never reach. Patience keeps you from shattering what is still being formed. My child, waiting is also a lesson in power, rightly placed. When you cannot force an outcome, you learn to focus on what is yours, to steward your posture, your choices, your faithfulness. True power does not lie in compelling circumstances to change, but in preserving your identity unchanged within those circumstances. When you practice patience, you refuse the shortcuts that erode the soul. You choose the long road not because it is easy, but because it is safe for lasting life. This patience will test your heart with recurring questions. How much longer is it worth it? What if I am waiting for nothing? These questions do not make you weak. They make you human. But do not let them become your guide. Let them instead invite you back to what is essential. Are you waiting out of fear of losing something, or out of faithfulness to what has been entrusted to you? When you can answer that, waiting ceases to be a burden and becomes a conscious choice. My child, in the time of waiting, you will be taught to examine subtle motives. You may discover that your desire to move quickly is not only for a good goal, but also to avoid the discomfort of uncertainty. You may want the door to open so you do not have to face the emptiness of the present moment. Patience returns you to the truth. No outward advance can compensate for an inner life that has not yet found its ground. If you remain long enough, the emptiness itself will tell you what needs healing. Waiting is also a season for the purification of expectations. You will be required to loosen your grip on overly specific visions of how things must unfold. These visions are not wrong, but when held too tightly, they blind you to other openings. Patience widens your sight. You learn to say, I do not know exactly what will come, but I know I will hold to what is right when it does. This freedom lightens the weight of waiting. My child, use this time to strengthen what does not depend on circumstances. Love that does not depend on response. Integrity that does not depend on reward. Peace that does not depend on speed. When you practice these things in waiting, you are building an inner resilience that no storm can easily strip away. The patient are not those who do not hope. They are those who hope without losing themselves. Do not despise the small acts in the season of waiting. Small acts anchor you in reality, doing well what is before you, keeping simple promises, tending to the relationships closest at hand. Those who wait while neglecting what is near will try to compensate with fantasies of what is far. True patience keeps you present, not escaping. Presence is where life continues. My child, patience also teaches you to discern between doors that are temporarily closed and doors that are not meant for you. This discernment does not come from haste, but from time. When you remain long enough with the truth, some doors open on their own, others quietly lose their pull. You do not need to slam every door shut. Faithful time will do that work for you, gently, without resentment. In waiting, you will learn to listen more deeply. With less outward motion, you begin to hear the subtle movements within true promptings. Gentle warnings. Many wrong decisions do not come from ill intent, but from insufficient listening. Patience creates the space for that listening. Space is not emptiness. It is room for what is right to speak. My child, remember that waiting does not diminish your worth. Your value does not increase when you move quickly, nor does it decrease when you stand still. Your worth is already given, and patience helps you live in alignment with it. When you stop measuring yourself by speed, you free yourself from the invisible race that exhausts so many. There will be moments when you want to break the waiting with a hurried decision, any decision, just to feel in control again. Pause. Immediate control often leads to long-term regret. Patience offers you a different kind of control. Control over how you are present, how you choose, how you remain upright in heart. This control is quiet, but it endures. My child, when you learn patience in this way, you are not merely waiting for an outcome, you are becoming someone who can carry that outcome without being deformed by it. That is why some things arrive slowly, not because you have not tried hard enough, but because you are being prepared not to lose yourself when they come. Patience protects you from success that arrives before maturity. My child, when you have learned to remain in waiting without panic, another lesson will unfold, the lesson of quiet obedience. Obedience here is not about following external commands, but about staying faithful to what you know to be right, even when there is no pressure or reward pushing you forward. In long stretches where nothing seems to change, quiet obedience is what keeps you from drifting. It does not create excitement, but it establishes a steady axis around which your life can turn. In this season, you will see good opportunities appear, not necessarily wrong, but misaligned with the rhythm being set for you. They arrive precisely when you are weary of waiting, precisely when you want to feel that you are moving forward. This is the subtle test of patience, choosing not to do what you could do, in order to preserve what you should do. Not every good thing is meant for you in every season. Quiet obedience helps you say not yet to the good, so you can keep right for what truly matters. My child, this kind of obedience will expose a deep fear, the fear of being forgotten. When you are not acting, you fear being left behind, fear that your value will fade. But listen carefully, your value does not depend on whether you appear at someone else's appointed time. Your value is bound to your faithfulness to what has been entrusted to you. The faithful do not need to self-promote. Time itself will call their name when it is needed. In waiting, you will be invited to examine the source of your motivation. Do you do what you do out of fear or out of love? Do you move forward from a desire to be seen or from a desire to live truthfully when motivation is not refined? Action, even right action, can exhaust you. When motivation is purified, even waiting becomes a place of refuge. Quiet obedience is a tool for cleansing motivation, because it does not allow you to rely on applause. My child, there is a paradox here. The less you try to prove yourself, the clearer you become. When you stop striving to convince the world that you are making progress, you begin to hear your inner rhythm more distinctly. That rhythm is not hurried, but it is precise. It leads you toward choices that are less glamorous, yet more enduring. This clarity does not come from excessive analysis. It comes from staying with the truth long enough. There will be days when you find yourself doing the same work, speaking the same words, holding the same boundaries, and wondering whether any of it matters. Meaning does not always arrive in the form of emotion. Some meanings are only recognized when you look back over a long stretch and realize you are no longer the same person. Quiet obedience accumulates change without announcements. It works in the shadows of ordinary life. My child, do not confuse obedience with resignation. Resignation abandons responsibility. Obedience embraces the right measure of responsibility. Resignation extinguishes hope. Obedience holds hope without forcing outcomes. You can be obedient and still proactive in caring for what is near, learning what is needed, and preparing for what is coming. Such proactivity does not break waiting. It makes waiting alive. In this season, you will be taught how to handle disappointment without betraying your values. Disappointment comes when expectations are not met within your desired timeline. You have two choices: adjust your expectations or adjust your values. Adjusting values to reduce disappointment is the short but dangerous path. Adjusting expectations to preserve values is the longer but safer path. Quiet obedience chooses the second. My child, pay attention to how you speak about the waiting time. If you call it wasted, you will treat it carelessly. If you call it preparation, you will live within it responsibly. The language you use will determine the experience you have. Name it rightly in order to live rightly. Waiting time is not an empty gap. It is the forge of inner strength. You may find yourself lonelier in this season, not because you have been abandoned, but because you are no longer swept along by the crowd. Quiet obedience often narrows the circle, but it deepens the bonds. You will discover who can remain with you when there is nothing to display. Such connections are precious. They are not loud, but they are faithful. My child, notice a sign of maturity. You explain yourself less, not because you do not care, but because you no longer need to justify faithful choices. When you know why you are waiting, you do not need to persuade anyone. This calm is not indifference, it is rootedness. The rooted do not rush to argue, they let time speak for them. Quiet obedience also teaches you how to keep your heart open to the unexpected. Waiting does not mean closing doors to all possibilities. It means not chasing every possibility. When you keep your heart open without haste, you allow what is right to find you naturally. What is right rarely arrives according to the script you wrote, but it arrives at the moment you are ready. My child, there will be times when you question your own obedience. Am I being too cautious? Am I missing out? These questions are part of the journey. Use them to return to your standard. Does this keep me honest, loving, and at peace? If yes, continue. If not, adjust. Quiet obedience is not afraid of being examined. What it fears most is being abandoned. Finally, remember this: waiting that is filled with quiet obedience will not leave you empty. It will leave you full of clarity, full of endurance, full of the capacity to choose rightly when the moment comes. When the door opens, you will not rush in panic. You will step through with a steady gait, because you have learned how to remain with what is right when nothing was guaranteed. My child, when you have walked long enough through days of waiting and quiet obedience, you will notice a subtle yet decisive shift. You are no longer living in order to arrive, but learning to live in order to walk rightly. This is the moment many miss, because they measure progress by timelines and outcomes, while what matters most is unfolding within. When you stop pressing time to give you answers, you begin to hear what time itself is teaching. And that lesson is not passivity, but freedom from the fever to achieve. In this season, you will realize that patience is not merely waiting for a door to open, but learning to remain fully present where you stand. Remaining is not freezing, it is deep presence. You are present with the work at hand, without despising it because it is not the destination. You are present with the relationships close to you, without treating them as temporary. You are present with yourself, with fatigue, fear, and hope without trying to escape. It is this presence that turns waiting into fertile ground for growth. My child, there will come a time when you see that what you once called delay was, in fact, right timing. If you had arrived earlier, you would have carried parts of yourself not yet healed. If you had arrived later, you would have missed the opportunity given. Right timing cannot be forced. It can only be received. When you learn to live by rhythm, you no longer resent time, you befriend it. And time, when honored, becomes an ally. In waiting, you will also learn to discern between hope and illusion. Hope allows you to look ahead without demanding a specific script. Illusion does the opposite. It insists that everything unfold according to a pre-drawn picture. When illusion is delayed, you become disappointed. When hope is tested, you mature. Patience nourishes hope through daily faithfulness, not through distant fantasies. Healthy hope does not need protection from reality. It stands firm within reality. My child, notice this important sign. You begin to fear, not knowing less. What once unsettled you now becomes space for trust. Trust is not blindness. It is choosing to move forward with what you know is right, while allowing what you do not yet know to unfold in its time. When you no longer need to hold every answer, you become lighter, and in that lightness, you move more freely when the moment arrives. There will be moments when you are tempted to break the waiting with hurried action, simply to prove that you still have control. But now you have another choice: to act from peace. Acting from peace may be slower, but it is precise. It is not pulled by the fear of missing out, nor pushed by the need to be seen. It flows from inner alignment, where heart, mind, and conscience are not in conflict. Patience has trained you to wait for that alignment. My child, in this season you will find yourself reacting less to comparison. Where the progress of others once made you doubt your own, you now understand that every path has its own rhythm. Comparison pulls you out of rhythm. Patience keeps you within it. When you stop comparing, you stop running. When you stop running, you begin to go deep. And going deep is always more valuable than going fast. Waiting also teaches you to honor necessary no's. Some doors remain closed not because you are lacking, but because you are not meant to pass through them. If you force them open, you will carry burdens that do not belong to you. Patience gives you the time to recognize this without bitterness. You do not need to prove that you can open every door. You only need to walk through the doors that lead to life. My child, remember this in waiting. You are being taught how to carry outcomes without letting outcomes carry you away. Success that comes too early can cause you to lose yourself. Failure that comes too early can make you doubt what is right. Patience places you in balance, steady enough not to be inflated by success, and supple enough not to be broken by failure. This is the gift of waiting. You may not notice it at first, but waiting has refined the way you desire. You desire less, but more deeply. You desire what fits, not what dazzles. You desire sustainability, not fleeting sensation. When desire is refined, you are no longer pulled by every invitation. You know what you are seeking, and more importantly, why. My child, when the time comes, and it will come, you will find yourself less hurried than you once imagined. You will step into the new with a calm forged through days that felt unnew. You will carry good habits, clear boundaries, and values tested by fire. You will not need to catch up. You will simply need to continue. The new will not overwhelm you, because you have learned how to remain with the present. And this is what I want you to hold firmly. Waiting does not take life away from you. It returns life to you in its proper measure. It cuts away the haste that distorts the soul. It teaches you to live fully in each day, not to live in order to escape today. When you live this way, you no longer fear pauses. You know that, even in stillness, life is moving forward quietly, precisely, and faithfully. My child, if today you are still waiting, remain in that waiting with gentle courage. Continue what is right, tend what is near, and keep your heart open without haste. You are not stuck. You are being placed rightly, and when the next step appears, You will recognize that the days of waiting have made you ready not to run, but to walk steady, free, and no longer afraid of the slow rhythm of truth. My child, there will come a time when you realize that not every wound is born from a great upheaval, and not every fracture announces itself loudly. Some injuries are formed in silence, accumulating through the times you swallowed your words, the times you convinced yourself that it's fine, the times you placed the needs of others above the truth of your own inner life. These wounds do not cause you to fall immediately. Instead, they slow you down, cause you to shrink inward, and gradually dull your innocence. This part 8 opens so that you may learn a difficult yet necessary art healing, not through denial, but through gentle truth. True healing does not begin when pain disappears, but when you stop running from it. Avoidance takes many subtle forms: chronic busyness, intellectualizing emotions, telling yourself you have moved on while your body and mind continue to react. I am not inviting you to dig into pain in order to drown in it. I am inviting you to face it so that it no longer controls you from behind. When you name accurately what has happened, you reclaim the power to choose how you respond today. My child, healing requires you to accept a truth that is not easy. You were hurt, and that hurt has shaped how you love, how you trust, and how you set boundaries. Acceptance is not blame, it is acknowledgement of impact. When you deny the impact, you give the wound permission to keep shaping your behavior. When you acknowledge it, you begin to separate the wound from your identity. You are not your wound. You are the one carrying a wound and possessing the capacity to heal. In this process, memories you thought were forgotten will resurface. They do not return to torment you. They return to be placed in their proper context. Unprocessed memories repeat themselves. Processed memories settle. Allow memory to be told again in honest language, without exaggeration and without minimization. When you tell it truthfully, you place it in the past where it belongs, instead of allowing it to govern the present. My child, pay attention to the body in healing. The body remembers what the mind avoids: prolonged tension, unexplained fatigue, exaggerated reactions. These are the body's language, signaling that something needs to be heard. Do not rush to fix. Listen. When you allow the body to feel safe through sufficient rest, deep breathing, a gentle movement, you create a foundation for the healing of the soul. To separate the body from this process is to make healing more difficult. Healing will also challenge how you understand forgiveness. Forgiveness is not forgetting, nor is it reconciliation at any cost. Forgiveness is the decision not to let the past continue to tax the present. You can forgive and still keep boundaries. You can release resentment without denying truth. When you confuse forgiveness with self-erasure, you deepen the wound. Mature forgiveness holds both truth and life together. My child, a common trap is the desire to heal quickly return to what feels normal, quickly avoid hard conversations, quickly move on. But healing has its own rhythm. Too fast, and you miss the lesson. Too slow, and you grow discouraged. Walk at a pace that is enough to feel, enough to learn, enough to adjust. Patience in healing is not prolonging pain. It is giving pain enough space to be transformed. In this journey, you will learn to distinguish between pain that heals and pain that harms. Healing pain leads you toward clarity, freedom, and firm boundaries. Harmful pain keeps you trapped in cycles of blame, self-condemnation, or retaliation. When a thought makes you contract and harden, pause. When a choice allows you to breathe more deeply, even if it is difficult, continue. The body and conscience will help you discern, if you are willing to listen. My child, healing is also about reclaiming your voice. You may have been silent for too long, accustomed to not expressing needs or naming what is not right. Silence once protected you. Now it may keep you stuck. Reclaiming your voice does not mean speaking loudly or excessively. It means speaking at the right time, saying the right thing, in the right way. When you speak truth with a steady voice, you restore your dignity. Understand, this healing does not make you numb, it makes you discerning. You will still feel, but you will no longer be dragged by feelings. You will still remember, but memories will no longer rule you. You will still love, but you will no longer trade yourself in order to be loved. This is a profound shift from reflex to choice. And every healthy choice requires the foundation of healing. My child, do not heal alone if you do not have to. Some parts need another's gaze to be set back in the right place. Seek those who know how to listen without rushing to fix, who can remain present without judgment. Healing within relationship repairs what was wounded in relationship. But choose carefully. Not everyone is safe enough to hear your story. Safety is not found in promises, it is found in consistency. Healing will also invite you to revisit beliefs formed in pain. I am not trustworthy. I must handle everything myself. I am not allowed to be weak. These beliefs once helped you survive, but now they limit you. Bring them into the light of truth. Replace them not with positive slogans, but with new experiences accumulated over time. New beliefs require new evidence, small moments of safety, repeated faithfully. My child, as you enter healing with gentle truth, you will find that you no longer need to stay on guard at all times. Defensiveness consumes energy, healing restores it. You will notice yourself becoming more present, more attentive, responding rather than reacting. These changes are not loud, but they make life lighter. And this is crucial. Healing does not erase the past. It places the past in its proper position. The past becomes a source of wisdom, not a source of fear. When you live this way, you no longer fear touching memory. You know you will not be swallowed by it. You have learned how to carry your story without letting the story carry you away. My child, step into this process with gentle courage. Courage to look. Gentleness, not to punish yourself. Every step of healing is a step toward freedom, not freedom from pain, but freedom from being led by pain. And as you continue, you will discover that what once caused you to close in on yourself becomes the very place where you open to live, to love, and to move forward without carrying the old weight. Thank you for listening to today's message. Please subscribe and turn on notifications so that together we may continue to receive the living word. Build a steadfast faith and walk in the boundless love of the Lord. Amen.